All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been going over Terry Felke-Morris's Web Development and Design Foundations with HTML5, 8th edition. And in particular, I've been going over the PowerPoints from the book, and I'm up to Chapter 3, which is on describing cascading style sheets. And once again, we have about 11 or so objectives. Describe the evolution of style sheets from print media to the web. List advantages of using cascading style sheets. Use color on web pages. Create style sheets that configure common color and text properties. Apply inline styles. Apply embedded styles. Use external style sheets. Configure element class ID and contextual selectors. Utilize the cascade in CSS. And finally, validate CSS. I think what I'm going to do is bring back up the same document that I was working with earlier. And it's here someplace. Index, there we go. It's the one that I was working with earlier, where I went through a bunch of different stuff in here. And I think what I'll do, I don't know if this will be a good idea or not, but we're going to find out, is I'm going to comment out everything, and I'm going to go out to a site that you may or may not have heard of before. It's called lipsum.org, I believe. And I want to generate, let's generate 6 paragraphs of text. Okay, so there they are. Boom. All right, I'm going to put them into my document. So they're going to come, again, I'm going to open up some room here. Now it's going to look pretty bad for just a couple seconds, but let me surround all this with paragraph tags. And you'll be very quickly will be able to see exactly what I just did. I'm trying to set up a really simple site here that is just going to have some text in it. And there it is. All right. And the reason for my doing that is, make it a little smaller here. The reason for my doing that is it's going to allow me to put in some CSS. Okay, so that was my rationale for doing all that. Don't worry about this. Is just basically nonsensical text that's used as filler. And again, the site, if you do care, was lipsum.com, I guess. And it's from Lorem Ipsum. There's stories behind that. I don't want to go through them right now. So let's take a look at our PowerPoints. And as always, I will go back and forth between what's on the screen here, and I'll pop back into my document and go back and forth like that. If you want, you can go out to this site that's called csszengarden.com, and it's got a lot of different examples of things you can do with style sheets. If you look at it this way, then in the last chapter we talked about HTML, the hypertext markup language. And the big thing about HTML is that it's used to put web content. It creates web content. CSS, cascading style sheets, the subject of this chapter, on the other hand, is about presentation. So it's about taking that HTML and prettying it up. So we'll talk about that in just a couple minutes. All right. As they mentioned, their style sheets have been used for years in desktop publishing. They apply typographical styles and spacing to print media. With CSS, provides the functionality of style sheets, and it's flexible and it's cross-platform. So ideally, it'll look pretty much the same on any type of browser. The advantages of CSS, the biggest advantage is what we're going to see as we go on is you will have your HTML in one file, your CSS in another file, and your JavaScript in another file. So as the second line here says, our style will be separate from our structure. Plus, we can take that style file once we create it, and we can add it to a bunch of different pages. All right, and if I have to make changes, I only have to make changes in one place. And that's pretty much what they're saying here under these advantages. There are 4 different types of cascading style sheets. There are inline styles, embedded styles, external styles, and imported styles. Inline styles, they're put right into the body section itself. They're not recommended, but occasionally they make sense to use. They're used with the HTML style attribute, and as it says, they typically only apply to a specific element, a word or a sentence or a paragraph. Embedded styles apply to an entire page. You put your CSS then right in the head section of your document if you want to do that. If you pull that CSS that you put into the head style, if you pull it all out of the head style, of the head element, and you put it in its own file, you've got external styles. And we're going to see examples of all 3 of these. The imported styles, as it says, are similar to external styles, but I don't even think they talk about them in here. CSS syntax works with what are called rules. So as it says, style sheets are composed of rules that describe the type of styling you want to apply. Each rule has 3 components: a selector, a property, and a value. And the property and value are put within curly braces. And if there's several property value combinations, each one is ended with a semicolon. It's even considered okay and really good practice to even end the last one with a semicolon. So here's a couple of examples. This would make the text on a page blue and the background color yellow. Let's grab that one and see what happens. Okay. Now again, there's many ways that I can put this CSS in here. For now, I'm going to throw it right up here. So I have to put in what are called style tags. So beginning and an ending style tag. And then I just paste it in. And again, that's saying that my body, I want the color, which means the text color, to be blue, and I want the background color to be yellow. Now, as far as that VT that's here, that's something that was copied in from the book. I don't know what that is. All right, but you see what I have here. So notice I've got it. Let's run this again. You saw what it looked like. But notice now when I refresh, we've got blue text and we've got a yellow background. And the reason we've got all that is we told it everything that exists in our body, color, which means the text color, should be blue. The background color, and I believe we can just leave that off and just put in background. Let's find out. That's supposed to be yellow. That will change it just to make sure. I'll make it red. And we'll see if that takes. And you can see it does. Oh, that's pretty tough on the eyes. All right, let's try to make the color white on there, so the text color. Maybe that'll make it a little easier to read. There we go. Okay, all right. So continuing on. Oops. We can also use hexadecimal color combinations. So if we want to do the same exact thing, the blue and the yellow, we can instead put in these. So let's put in these. Change these accordingly. All right, I'm going to save, and it should turn it back to blue and yellow as it was before. And you see it does. So what's the difference? Well, when we did it the first time, we had blue here and we had yellow here. Those are literally color keywords. When you start something with a pound sign, it means what follows is what's called a hexadecimal code. Hexadecimal means base 16. So we're used to counting and saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we count in decimal, base 10. That's what decimal is. So we count, if we're counting to 10, let's make this a little bigger. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and there's a reason I'm going up like this, just to show you. So that's base 10. Let me put here. Dot, dot, dot. So in other words, that is decimal, which is base 10. On the other hand, if I count like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F, 10, 11, dot, dot, dot. That is what's referred to as hexadecimal. And that is base 16. So again, when you look at this, once you get up to 9, that is the equivalent of 10 in decimal. So that would be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So when you look at this, you say, well, that's 10. No, it's not. It's 1, 0, which means give me 0 ones and give me 1 16. This says give me 1 1 and 1 16, etc. So when we work with these color codes that you see right here, let me blow it up a little bit so it's easier to see. So when you work with these color codes, this says there are six digits in here. The first 2 digits represent the amount of red you want to have. The second 2 digits, the amount of green. The third 2 digits, the amount of blue. So this says I want 0 red, which is a total absence of red. I want 0 green, which is a total absence of green. And I want what's referred to as a total saturation of blue. Now on this line, we want a total saturation of red and a total saturation of green. And the red and green together are making the yellow. And we want a total absence of blue. So either one of those would work. So I can do it like this, or, and I'm gonna comment this out because I don't want to put it in there twice. It'd be silly to do that. I could put in color, blue, background, color. Remember, you don't have to say background color. You can just say background, yellow. So in other words, what I have showing here in these 2 lines are equivalent to what are in these 2 lines. I just want you to realize that. You can do it either way. There really and truly is no difference. There's no advantage of one as opposed to the other, except I suppose that in the second case, the one that's commented out, you're actually doing less typing. Okay? All right, let's continue on. In Table 3.1 in the book, they show some common CSS properties, and I believe some examples of them. I don't have the book open, but I have it right here. So, Table 3.1. This is page 85 in the book, and they show examples of different font weight, font size, etc. All right, now we can go in here. I've already shown you the background color and the color. Let's look at a couple of these other ones. So we've got font family, font size, font style, font weight. Let's look at those 4. Okay, so the first is font family, and that literally says what font do you want to use. So I'm going to say here font family, and I'll put in here think there's a monospace, but I don't remember. I don't know. I want to show you something where it would really change the look and the feel. So let's put it here. Times New Roman. This must be put inside of double quotes because there's blank spaces in there. Arial and sans serif. What this says for the font family is I want to use a Times New Roman font if you have one. If you don't have a Times New Roman font, try to use an Arial font. If you don't have an Arial font, use a sans serif font. And virtually every computer has got a serif or a sans serif font. All right, so let me save this. Let me go back to our page. All right, and watch how the text style will change. Now, maybe it already was Times New Roman. So let's change that from Times New Roman. Let's make it Arial. In fact, let's do this first. I'm going to go back and just set the color to black, and I'm going to set the background color to white. All right, I'm going to do that for right now. Why? Just because it'll make it easier for you to see when we show changes. I thought I changed the background color. Maybe I didn't. Oh, that color, background color. FF. That should be correct. 00. Should be black, and that should be white. Why is that not showing? Not sure why that's still yellow. There's absolutely no reason that I can see that that should still be yellow. Background color. 6. Well, let's just put in the word white and see if it takes that. It's not changing. That is very strange. Try to run it again. And it's still yellow. This is all correct. There, it's white. All right, now I'm going to try to change the font style in here. Let's we'll put in here font style. I'll try Helvetica. I'm not sure if it even has that. Helvetica. And if you don't have Helvetica, try Arial. And if you don't have Arial, try a serif font. All right. So let's see when we refresh here if the font looks different. It's not. Why isn't it showing my changes? Oh, it's font family, not font style. Font family. All right. Now watch how the font type changes. Okay. Hopefully you saw that. It was a big change. All right. What else was there in there? There was also font size, font style, and font weight. All right, I'm going to say font size 1.5 M, which I think will make it 1.5 times what it currently is. And you can see how it's bigger. All right. So what else was there? There was font style and font weight. Font style. Let's just say that I wanted the whole thing to be possible font styles are. Normal, italic, oblique, and initial. So let's try italic. And that should make all of our text in here italicized. Once we refresh. And you can see now that it is all italic. All right, we can do the font weight. We'll make that bold. And I'm going to go back to the font style and I'm going to make it normal, which should turn off what we had in there before. So now it's bold. All right. And let's go back one more time and we'll change this from 1.5 ems to 1.1 ems. So it should be 10% bigger than it would be normal size. A little easier to see now. Okay? All right. There's a few other properties that are in there. There is line height and margin, text align, text decoration, and width. So let's take a quick look at those. So let's come in and let's set the line height. We'll set that to 1.5 ems. Best way to do this is to make a change, go back and look at it again. So notice each letter is higher now, so it almost has the look of being double spaced. All right. We've got margin, text align, text decoration, and width. Margin's kind of a different one. I'm going to try something so that you see this. I think it's 0 auto. We'll go into this later. That should center everything on the page. Kind of hard to see with the way that it's written. But let's put in a different margin where we can actually see it. You can put it up to 4 values here. So I want 10 pixels on the top. I want 15 pixels on the right. I want 20 pixels on the bottom. And I want 25 pixels on the left. So it's like a clock. Top, right, bottom, left. All right. Now what you're going to see here when we hit enter is there should be some more white space in here than there is right now. And you can see that there is. This is all stuff that we're going to be going over much more and much more depth and breadth of coverage as we go on. All right, there's text align, text decoration, and width. Again, some of this is going to be kind of hard to see. Let me put, let's go back to here and let's just grab any one of these paragraphs and let's make it first one very small. All right, I'm purposely doing that. So the first paragraph now just looks like this. Why? So I can say this and you can see what's happening here. I'm going to say text align right. All right. And you notice how everything is now right justified. The default is left, so if you want it left justified, you don't have to say anything. I think you can also say justify, which fully justifies it on both sides. Okay. All right, text decoration won't make any sense unless we have a link in here. So let's put a link in. I'm just making it up. I'm going to put it right here. Ahref equals http://www.rankin.edu. We'll make the word lorem there. That will have. Okay, so right now I haven't made my text decoration change in it yet, but I will in a second. Oh, don't know what happened there. Forgot my double quote. All right, so you can see how easy it is to make something look totally different. So there's the lorem. If I click there, I go to Rankin's website. I will eventually. It's a little slow. All right, so there you go. All right, but what I want to do is I don't want the underline there. So I can do this. I can come back and I can say, all right, wherever in here you have an anchor tag, okay, I want those to have text decoration none. All right, and I think I can just do it like this. So let's see if that changed. Did not. I might have to put the A in front of it. So let's grab this, take this out of here. A for anchor. And we're saying in here for our anchor, we don't want any underlines, so that's why I'm saying the text decoration none. Let's see if that worked. And you notice we've lost the underline. These are all things that we're going to be going over, for lack of better words, almost again and again. Finally, there's a width. And I can do that. Let's do that with the body. We'll set the width equal to 800 pixels. What does that do? It's easier for you to look at it than it is for me to tell you about it. Okay? Now the width was only 800 pixels here. Okay? So you can see some of these things that we can change utilizing CSS or cascading style sheets. All right? We can work with colors. I've already mentioned that when you do this, you can work and you can use either words or you can use hexadecimal values. There's even other ways that you can do it, but for now, that'll be fine. So you notice red, total saturation of red, no green, no blue. Green, total absence of red, total saturation of green, no blue. Blue, total absence of red and green, total saturation of blue. Black, total absence of everything. White, total saturation of everything. And gray, kind of a midline type of value. All right, the pound sign again means it's a hexadecimal value. One thing, just so you know, there are a couple shortcuts that you can use in here. Do you have anything in here where I use that? Since this says 000, this is 0000000. If the second number repeats all the time like this, I can just shorten it to this. So for instance, if I wanted, let's say that I was going to have the one we saw before, CCCCCC. Okay? And you'll see what that looks like right here. All right, it made our text grayish in color. All right, I'm going to set it back just for a second. I'm going to set it back to 000, but only with 3 zeros. And notice it's black again. If I want it to go to that gray again, I could put in CCC, CCC, I could put in gray, or I could just put in 3 C's. All right, so this is the equivalent of CC, CC, CC. And you'll notice it goes back again to gray. Okay? Notice color palette. A collection of 216 colors. Sometimes if I want a color, for instance, let's say that I want, I don't know, let's say I want goldenrod. Okay, I can put in here, for example, hex code goldenrod. And notice the system will try to find it for me. All right, and it's telling me that it's this. So if I change my background color from white to that, that's saying that my background color should now be goldenrod. All right, and you notice, or maybe you noticed, when I did this, another way that you can write this there are three basic ways that you can write colors. Okay, you can use hex values, you can use words, and you can use what's called RGB, which is a red, green, blue function. All right, let's just jump back into our book here. How to choose a color scheme. The idea is when you're starting to work on a website, what color should you use? Well, if you're working on a website for someone else, probably the best thing to do is for you to talk to the person or persons you're doing the website for and ask them if there's a color they would want. You may or may not know this, but as an example, and I'm going to go back again to our example here, and I'm going to change the background color to red. This time we'll use FFOOO. The F's, A, B, C's, etc. can be upper or lowercase. And you may or may not be aware of this, but historically, red is the hardest color on the central nervous system. So a lot of people don't like to use red for a background color because it can be very hard for some people. Okay? When you choose colors for text and background, you want contrast. Approximately 10% of people in the world are colorblind. One of my older brothers is colorblind. It almost kept him out of the United States Navy. Okay? But you want to make sure you've got enough contrast because otherwise, in people who are even partially colorblind, if you make the color of your text and the color of your background so close, they might blur together where it's very hard for people to differentiate between the two. Notice as it says, there's online tools that you can use to verify or work with contrast. All right. Configuring color with inline CSS. That's what I've been showing you, basically. I showed you the style attribute. Let's try one of these. I'm going to try something, and hopefully I won't regret it, but we're going to give it a try anyway. So in fact, let's do this. Maybe you've seen this before. For example, I'm gonna go back to here, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put here for our first sentence. Once upon a time. Okay, why am I doing that? Hopefully it'll make sense why I'm doing it in just a minute. But once upon a time, and there's the lorem ipsum stuff. Okay, now I'm going to come back to here, and I'm going to paste in what I had before, and I'm going to have to put this in what's called a span tag, which we'll get over a little bit, so don't worry about it if you don't know what it means. And I'm going to say style equals, and I want to put in here font size 3M. If I did this correctly, the O in once upon a time should be 3 times the size of the other letters. So let's see if I did it correctly. Okay. Maybe you've seen that before in children's stories where they'll put in the O and once upon a time is in real big letters when you start. That's the way that we're doing it here. And what this says is, okay, that O, I want you to style it. I want the font size to be 3M, where 1M is 100% size. So I said make it 300%. And I put it inside of a span tag because I only wanted to affect this letter. I didn't want to put it into a div tag. Span tag, unlike a div tag, a span tag is what's known as an inline tag. We're going to be going over all this stuff. You don't have to worry about it at all. I just wanted to mention a few things to you, show you some examples as we're going along the way here. They give you an example here. This is an H1, which should be red text, and the background color should be gray. And as it says, this is displayed as a red heading with a gray background. Now, kind of an interesting thing about this, if I grab this, and I will, if I grab all this, Okay? And with what I've got on my page right now, let's put this at the very bottom. So let's add another paragraph. We don't even need a paragraph. There, we've got it in there as an H1 tag. This is displayed as a red heading with a gray background. Well, let's look and see if indeed that's the case. Okay? And it is. It's red, so it's kind of reverse of what we have everything else. Had we made that gray with a red background, okay, it still would have been gray, the text, but you wouldn't have seen the background because it's already red. There's a lot of different tricks that you can do with CSS, and we're going to learn many of them as we go on throughout the semester. All right, so this is kind of what I've shown you before, the style, and I just showed you an inline one also. If I were to do this, so I'm going to grab all the CSS that I have, all of this that's up here, every bit of this, and I'm going to take every single bit of it and I'm going to yank it out of here, and I'm going to put it in its own file. Okay, and I'm going to save it right to my desktop, and I'm going to call it style.css, which is quite often the name that you use. You notice there's some color coding that the editor is putting in there for me. You don't have to do this, but to me it's easier when things line up to see what's going on here. So there's my style.css file. Once I do that, then I can come back in here and go to my HTML file. I don't need this anymore. I don't even know what that is. I don't need that anymore either. So I can come back to my HTML file. I don't need these style tags anymore. But what I have to do is what's referred to as link the style sheet, because it's an external file. So I say link, all right, rel equals style sheet. I'm telling the relationship it's a style sheet. href equals style.css. And there's nothing closing on that tag, like that. All right. If this worked, when I take this and refresh it, it won't look any different. And it does not. All right, but now my information is in an external file. Those are using inline or external styles. Okay, so I've shown you all three of these already. We looked at font weight, we looked at font style, we looked at font size, we looked at font family. When you are working with any of these things, notice, for example, here's font size, and here's what you can use. Extra, small, small, medium, large, and extra large. I wasn't using those. I was using what are called M's. Okay? Because of the fact today that so many people are looking at different websites on a mobile device, especially phones, you don't typically want to use pixels or points, because these pixels and points, these two right here, these two columns, those are fixed in size. The other two, M's and percentages, they take their size and they basically, so if I say I want something to be 0.5 M, it'll be 0.5 M based on whatever it is I'm using. All right, so it'll look different on a cell phone as opposed to on a desktop, for example. All right, font family I looked at a little bit and showed you some of this. Let's try a couple of these. There's cursive and fantasy, so let's try that one. So we've got this, our font family. Let's make this cursive. And if we can't find cursive, let's use fantasy. You notice that none of these here, none of them in here, none of them need the double quotes around them, and none of them need the double quotes around them because they're all single words. Let's go back to our file here. And notice that when I refresh, again, it looks quite different because I'm using a totally different font style than I used before. I showed you the embedded styles already. Okay, here's some more CSS properties. Line height I showed you. Text align I showed you. I didn't show text indent. If you want things to look more like a paragraph, the way we used to have to write them in grade school, where you had to indent the first line of your paragraph. Text decoration I showed you. Text transform is kind of a neat one. Let's take a look at that. All right, I'm going to put in here text. I wonder if I can just do this for the A tag. We're going to find out. Text transform upper case. All right. Let's go look. Watch this right here when I refresh. See how it's uppercase? It's a way that I can uppercase. I could uppercase the whole document if I wanted to. Okay, if I wanted to, I could have taken that text transform, and instead of setting it up for my anchor tag, I could have put it in the body. Then everything would have been uppercased. All right. This is getting to be a long lecture. It's already at 42 minutes, so let's see if we can start wrapping it up. Some of the rest of these, text shadow, text transform, some of these we're going to hit on later too. All right. CSS rules can be configured for elements. That's what I showed you. Also for classes, for IDs, and for what are called descendants. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to go here, and for this paragraph, you can pick any one I want, but I'll pick the one right here that starts with said. I'm going to say this class equals, we'll call it colorful. Okay, kind of a dumb name, but you'll see why I'm calling it that in a minute. Then in here, what I'm going to say is dot colorful, which means anything with a class of colorful will now, let's see, red background. We'll say color white. And you can see how that's gray, but when I refresh, see how that one is white now? It might show better if I made it a different color, so let's make it orange. Again, orange on a red background is going to look a little bit weird. Okay, so we've got the background color here, red. Let's make it CCCCCC. And where we had this being the color being CCC. Let's just make it black. And this will be CCC. Okay. Now notice the color in that paragraph is orange. So when I come in here and refresh, you can see how that's orange. Now I can apply that class to anything. Notice I applied it to a paragraph. All right. If I wanted to, I could have gone over here where we had our had this, and I could have come over here and I could have said href. I think I should be able to say this, class equal colorful. All right, don't know if that'll work or not. I haven't tried doing something exactly like that before, but we're trying it. See if that changes. Nope. That did not work. See if that works. And if it doesn't, I'm just going to go on. All right, so it's back to its original color. But the point is, I can take different things and give them the attribute of class equal colorful, if I'm so inclined to do that. All right, so in other words, we had it there in this paragraph. And if I wanted to, I could take every other paragraph, let's say, and I'm not doing a great job of really extolling the virtues of this, but it's fine the way it is. In fact, let's try this. We'll put class equal colorful here, and we'll see if our H1 tag is going to be orange. And we won't do any style here, so we won't do anything. We'll just say this is an H1 tag. All right, well that did work somewhat, but here we have every other one is an orange. Try to put the class equal colorful right inside of here. Okay, no idea if that'll work or not, but we're trying it. There it is. So you saw that in that case I applied the class to a paragraph and to an H1 tag. All right. Sometimes you just want one of something per page. Okay, so instead of using a class, you can use what's called an ID. Whereas a class starts with a period, an ID, all right, starts with a pound sign. And I'm going to call this, I don't know, extra small. And I'm going to say font size XX-small. Okay? All right. So that's saying anything with an ID of extra small should have a very small font size. So I'm going to come back here and let's take one of the paragraphs. It doesn't matter which one. We'll take this one here and we'll say ID equals ID equals extra small. Is that what I called it? Yep. So let's take a look at what that particular paragraph looks like. There it is. You can only have one ID per page. When I say one ID, every ID that you put on a page must be unique, so you can only use it once. You can use classes as many times as you want to, have to, need to, etc. Again, we're going to be running into these again and again and again in here. So I showed you class, I showed you ID. There's descendants. All right. And we're going to go into all this stuff, contextual selectors. We're going to go into all of this stuff as we go on in here. So right now, although it may seem like I'm not spending a lot of time on a lot of this stuff, it's because we will be going over it as we go on. The span I showed you configured the specially formatted area within another element, such as within a paragraph. And the example that I showed you with the span, if you remember, was that O in Once Upon a Time, right there. So I used a span tag. So I said just that one letter. So notice if I wanted the word once, maybe I want all of Once Upon a Time to be in big letters. all of that. All right, then I put the span right there. So watch the difference right here when I refresh. Okay? Again, it's pretty obvious when you make a lot of these changes just exactly what's happening. And that's what I'm trying to show you in here. All right. Just about finished with the chapter, I believe. I showed you external style sheets. Style sheets are called cascading style sheets because they go from a minor to a major order. What I mean is, if in the same style sheet I have an inline style, which is for just an element like with that span, and I have an internal style, like between style tags, and I have an external style, the one that takes the precedence is the most minor one, all right, which would be the inline style. And it has to take preference because if it didn't take preference, the other things would always override it. All right. I've shown you the link tag, okay, to associate an external style sheet with a web page, so we looked at that. All you do is you take all the stuff that you would put in normally between style tags, you remove the style tag, and you replace it with a link tag. All right. We'll go into this in more depth later, but by using those margin autos, it's a way to try to center things on a page. I mentioned the cascade effect to you before. Finally, if you want to validate your CSS, all right, it's a little bit different address, but it works the same as an HTML validation. So let's look at that, and that'll finish up the chapter. So I want to validate, and what I want to validate is this file right here that I created. All right, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to put in the address. Looks very similar to what we looked at before. I'll do a file upload again, choose my file. It'll be from the desktop, and it's style.css. Tell it to check. Green is good, which means that everything that I put in there met the standards that we have for it. All right. Again, long chapter. And what we went through in here, just to finish this up very quickly, is we talked about the evolution of style sheets. We didn't even go through print media. You'll hit that in a later chapter. We talked about the advantages of cascading style sheets, the fact that if I had several pages on my website, they could all use the same style sheet if it was external. We looked at the use of color, both for things like our background color. We looked at it for our text color, and there's other ways you can use color as well. We created style sheets. We looked at inline styles. We looked at internal styles. We looked at external styles. We talked about what the cascading means, and we ended up with actually validating. So that's it for Chapter 3. When I come back in a couple minutes, I'm going to go on into Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is on visual elements and graphics. So I'll be back with that shortly.